It was described by one senator as tax avoidance, pure and simple. But the chief executive of Apple has defended his company's entirely legal but controversial tax strategy. In an echo of last week's grilling of Google by a British committee of MPs, US senators have hauled Tim Cook before them, accusing his company of exploiting tax loopholes. But the Apple chief executive said it paid every single dollar of the tax it owed. Our business correspondent Siobhan Kennedy has been watching the exchanges.
I might ask you, please stand, raise your right hand.
Apple executives swear to tell the whole truth about their tax affairs. The truth is, senators say that the world's most innovative technology company is also innovative with its tax arrangements, funneling billions of dollars of profits offshore to avoid paying tax at home.
Apple's a great company, but no company should be able to determine how much it's going to pay in taxes, how many profits they're going to keep offshore, how they're going to bring them back home, using all kinds of gimmicks to avoid paying the taxes that should be paid to this country.
The senators didn't accuse Apple of doing anything illegal, simply that it did all it could to minimize its tax, a charge Chief Executive Tim Cook emphatically denied.
We pay all the taxes we owe, every single dollar. We not only comply with the laws, but we comply with the spirit of the laws. We don't depend on tax gimmicks. We don't stash money on some Caribbean island.
At the heart of Apple's tax dodge, the committee claims, is its decision to transfer the highly valuable technical know-how behind its iPhones and iPads and other products to Ireland. And then all of the profits that come from sales of those products around the world flow to Ireland too.
Shifting the bulk of its profits to offices in Ireland enables Apple to pay a much lower rate of tax than the 35% levied in the US. That transfer pricing, as it's known, helped Apple pay just $6 billion in US corporation tax for 2012, the committee said. Meanwhile, billions of dollars in profits from around the world are transferred to subsidiaries in Ireland. One, Apple Operations International, made income of $30 billion between 2009 and 2012, but has not filed any tax returns anywhere over the past 5 years. And another, Apple Sales International, made $22 billion in profits in 2011, but paid just $10 million in taxes.
The subcommittee's investigation has uncovered a disturbing truth. Apple's 3 primary Irish entities hold 60% of the company's profits, but claim to be tax residents nowhere in the world.
Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister insisted today that none of this was the fault of the Irish tax system.
They're not issues that arise from the Irish taxation system. They're issues that arise from the taxation system in other jurisdictions. And that's an issue that has to be addressed, first of all, in those jurisdictions. And secondly, insofar as there is an international dimension to this, it needs to be tackled by having robust international agreements. And Ireland very much is in favour of that.
As the row over Apple and others rolls on, today MEPs in Europe debated a range of measures to clamp down on tax avoidance, including naming and shaming tax evaders. They're due to vote tomorrow.
Joining us now from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, the Conservative Eurosceptic MEP Daniel Hannan. So, Mr. Hannan, how will you be voting tomorrow?
I'll be voting for exchange of information, but I'll be voting against the tax harmonisation that a number of people here are trying to tack on to this measure under the guise of cracking down on tax avoidance, when their real aim, of course, is to create an independent revenue stream for Brussels. But
it's quite obvious that there is a very serious problem here. You have Apple, the biggest company in the world, paying 1/200% of tax. Now, that just obviously doesn't work. Now, as Robert Reich, the former Labour Secretary, said on this programme yesterday, no mean economist, he said the fact is that nation-states, sovereign states, are being run ragged by massive multinational corporations.
Right. But let's look at why these appalling things happen. every loophole used by one of these companies, or indeed by wealthy individuals in legal tax avoidance schemes, was created by a finance minister somewhere looking for a good headline the following day. So every time a British Chancellor or one of his counterparts elsewhere says, for example, I am going to create a break for the film industry, they immediately create a little loophole, a little pocket, where whether it's Starbucks or Jimmy Carr or anyone else who can afford expensive accountants can shelter their gains, which of course means that the tax burden on everybody else becomes higher. So the way to make the rich pay is to have lower, flatter and simpler taxes, thereby removing both the motive and the opportunity for avoidance.
Well, now, your Prime Minister, David Cameron, your Chancellor of the Exchequer, both of them are absolutely determined to beat this. They're wrong, right?
They are very keen to have a global system rather than just a European one. It would be crazy to have EU rules which just result in people shifting their money to the Caribbean or to the Swiss banks or whatever. And no one is against information exchange. That has to be a sensible idea. But the EU is quite uncompetitive enough already without having a harmonised corporate tax base which will remove the competition, which is the main spur to tax cuts and downward pressure on rates.
Very briefly, you've written a blog today in which you kind of side with the swivel-eyed loons, as they've been called, and you're much kinder about them and much more honest. But would you regard yourself, not though you're not an activist, would you be swivel-eyed in some way? Do you think they were getting at people like you?
I can't imagine that anyone is swivel-eyed in his own eyes, whether they swivel or whether they're stationary. I think people who work for political parties, whether it's Conservative, Lib Dem, Labour, UKIP or Green, are decent, patriotic people who are giving up their time to advance the cause they believe in, whatever their interpretation of it is, and putting that above their personal interest. And I think that is a patriotic way of acting.
Daniel Hannan, thank you very much indeed for joining us from the European Parliament.